Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation about return on investment in top-rank MBA programs. This is a very important presentation if you're not sure yet, is an MBA the right step for you? We have some other videos about how to choose an MBA and the difference between top MBA programs, but I think this video is important for candidates who are thinking about the process, thinking can they afford it, thinking is it worth it? Let's kick in. My name is Shimri Winters. I'm a London Business School graduate. I head the strategy here at ARINGO MBA Admissions Consulting. ARINGO is a boutique admissions consulting firm helping candidates from all over the world get into top MBA programs. We're very good. We're very selective with the people we work with. We do everything from chancellor estimation, school selection, project management, working with you on the application, interview prep, scholarship prep, whatever's needed from the start till the end. Check us out on aringo.com. This was my only marketing slide. Okay, let's kick in. So today we're going to discuss top rank MBAs and the return on investment for these programs. Here's my very short agenda. It's not a very long presentation. And I think before we talk about return on investment, let's talk about the investment. Let's try and calculate how much an MBA actually costs. This obviously changes from one candidate to another, from one program to another. We'll discuss some of the factors. Then, after we discuss the cost, let's discuss the output and the salary that you can expect if you graduate from a top MBA program. Now, we're aiming for 2027 programs, but I don't think the statistics will change dramatically if you're thinking about 2028 or 2029. We can also talk not just about the numbers, but what can happen after a few years. Maybe your career can accelerate, transitioning to another position perhaps. So there's lots of considerations here post-MBA. And then we can kind of do some calculations, is the return on investment, does it take 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? Again, this calculation can change from candidate to candidate. Definitely, we can look a bit about differences. Is it a bit different in Europe or in the US or something like that? And maybe think about some other return on investment, some other benefits beyond the salary. Okay, I hope you're ready. I'm going to talk quite quickly and try and get this presentation done with in 10 minutes. So stay tuned, but definitely pause some of the slides if you want to kind of think of the concepts I'm trying to say here. Okay, so let's kind of talk about the cost. I think this is very important. So if we look at the tuition cost in a US program, we're talking about $70, $80, even $85,000 a year. Typical MBA programs in the US are 2 years. So you have to times that times 2. In Europe, we're talking roughly at the top programs these days of around 100,000 euros. That can be over $100,000 for a 1-year program or a 1.5-year program in schools like London Business School, INSEAD, Barcelona, or HEC Paris. Let's add some living expenses. Now, I don't know how lush you want to live. Are you living in the penthouse or in the underground basement? But I think it's fair to say for kind of a one person, single person that doesn't spend too much, maybe $30,000 a year in a US city, that's probably what you should be expecting, maybe a bit more. Again, obviously you can live cheaper and a bit more if you're a couple or if you kind of don't want to eat McDonald's every day and actually live in a normal apartment. So usually the housing is the big factor here. So it really depends how near you want to live to the school, where do you want to live, how big your apartment is, how fancy it is. That's usually the bigger factor, but of course I've seen many students that don't eat in restaurants or save money in other ways. I think this is smaller money in comparison to let's say the tuition. There's also the opportunity cost. So you were earning a salary, and even if it wasn't a very high one, and now you left that to do a full-time MBA. So I think these are the 3 main costs, okay? Some people will actually take off the middle one here, the living expenses, because they say, I need to live anyway. So I'm not going to factor that, because if I was working and living, I was paying that 30 to 50K anyway. So, some people don't take that into the calculation. Some do. You can decide what you want to do. And, if we look at kind of the total investments, again, just take these three sums together, decide if you're doing a 1-year program or a 2-year program, decide if you want to live expensively or cheaply, and, how much you are earning today. And I think you'll get to some kind of sum. By the way, we also have a return on investment calculator on our website. So check us out, aringo.com, or you can Google ARINGO ROI, and you will get to the calculator that can show you how long it will take you to return this investment. So as we can see, huge investment, but let's talk about what happens after the MBA. I love Jerry Maguire, if you've seen the film. So salaries in the US in the top MBA programs are currently around $160,000 to $180,000. In the top programs, M7s and even top 15 programs, we're talking about roughly $160K before sign-up bonuses, before additional bonuses that you can get, before stocks, shares, options, all that. So if we add some kind of bonus or something, we're getting to around 200K compensation. By the way, it's much higher in the M7 schools, not much higher, but it is higher than that on average. So you can expect something like this if you go to one of the top schools. This isn't kind of a theoretical number. Now, take the number we saw before, which whatever that number is for you, and you're making 200K a year, and now you can kind of decide, and use our calculator if you want. Is this a 2-year return on investment, a 3-year or 4-year return on investment? But these are just, I just wanted to kind of point out some of the companies you will be working for post-MBA. You can see them on the left. And on the right, I took one random school, and I'll tell you the school in 1 second, and just showed you kind of what industry you'll be working in and what kind of job function you'll be working in. As you can see, consulting is still the biggest industry. Tech is usually the second industry, and finance is the third industry, although financial roles, as you can see in the function graph here in the top one, are usually a bit more popular than kind of other roles. Now, this graph was from Carnegie Mellon, and if you, which is a great school, I think it was ranked 18 in the US News ranking for 2026. And the reason I took this school is I didn't want to take kind of I didn't want to take a Harvard or a Stanford. And you would actually see very, very, very similar employment statistics from a top ranked, number 1 or number 3 school, both in the industry, both in the function. Also, the salaries are very, very similar. So one of the stigmas, if I don't go to a top 3 or M7 school, it's not worth it. I think this graph kind of shows differently. So again, when does the MBA pay for itself? You decide if it's a 2-year thing, a 3-year thing, a 5-year thing. In my eyes, it pays itself big time, and it doesn't really matter if it took 2 years. I know you don't have any money now, and you're going to have to take lots of student loans, but it doesn't really matter if it took 2 years or 5 years. And actually, when I speak to a lot of alumni, and when they tell me, oh yeah, I managed to the return on investment was 1.5 years, I sometimes think they were doing something wrong because they weren't living the MBA experience. And in the MBA experience, there's many opportunities that sometimes cost a bit of money. For example, you might be studying in Europe or on the East Coast, and there might be a Silicon Valley track that might cost $1,000 or $2,000. So if maybe you didn't want to pay that because you didn't have much money, but actually that could have been a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, or a Japan track, or some kind of fun skiing trip, which you would have met your best friends and created a startup with them. So actually, I really believe that there is a strong return on investment. And if this happens after 2 years or 5 years or 4 years, doesn't really matter. It does happen. Obviously, there are salary increases, and you can kind of accelerate your career much faster post-MBA than if you didn't have an MBA. So it's also, let's say you were making some kind of sum and you were getting 10% increase every year. Now I'm telling you, don't work for 2 years, but the initial sum you're going to get and the increase you're going to get every year might be much higher. So that's also interesting. And remember, there's some kind of promotions, and you might be able to get to leadership roles with high paying roles later on. So I really think, this is a good investment. If it takes 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, it's still a very, very good investment. By the way, I didn't take into account into this presentation scholarships. I didn't take into account maybe doing a shorter MBA for a quicker return on investment. This is something that you need to decide. We have some videos about how to choose an MBA program, and I'll already tell you, location, school culture is important, class size might be important, and your career goals and finding a school that fits those career goals, all those are important. But another factor is cost. And, if one MBA program offers you a full ride scholarship and another doesn't, of course, that is a big factor that you can take into account. But in this presentation, I took into account that you didn't get any scholarships and you don't have any money. So you have to kind of pay it all by yourself. I think I want to discuss kind of some, okay, these are the factors that I was just talking about very quickly. So again, a shorter program will definitely give you a quicker return on investment. The question is the shorter program good for you? So INSEAD, 10-month MBA, fantastic. But maybe you're looking for an internship. Maybe you're looking to work in the Silicon Valley. And then, maybe a Californian MBA would have been better for you. Maybe top programs give a higher salary than a school that's ranked 100. But maybe the school that was ranked 100 was free. So again, you kind of need to sit on the Excel and think what's better for you. And also what kind of industry you want to work in. I did put here that, usually consulting, tech, and finance give higher salaries. This isn't always true. You might go and work for a pharma company, for an oil company, just a general management position, and you might get a higher salary. So I'm trying to put here a lot of stats, but they're not always true for your individual case. I think that's about it. Also, you can think about the geography. There might be a different cost of living in a different geography. So if you're living in a small city, it might cost less than London or New York or San Francisco. But yeah, there's lots of factors here, scholarships, etc. We didn't take them into account in this specific presentation. Okay, and my last slide is kind of thinking, okay, there's this financials that we discussed in the last 8 minutes. Okay, so there's the cost of living, but how much I'm going to make post-MBA, and maybe I'll get a bonus, and maybe I'll get a long-term, some kind of increase and promotions. And you can factor all this into an Excel and kind of say, great, we have a return on investment calculator on our side. Great, I'll manage to pay back everything within 3 years. But what about some other impacts that an MBA will give you? And I can tell you about myself that post-MBA, I actually went to positions that I wouldn't have placed myself and wouldn't have applied to without the MBA. So it wasn't just the money, it was going into another direction. Okay, so one factor is maybe fun. I know it sounds strange, but a lot of candidates have been working since they were 18. And at a certain age, let's say 28, they want to take 1 or 2 years off to actually have fun and actually enjoy what they're doing. And an MBA is a big enjoyment. There's, tens, sometimes more than 100 clubs, half of them professional, super interesting, private equity, data science in fintech, and some of them fun, sailing club, rugby club. Friends, you're going to meet lifelong friends, some competition, some events, I don't know if you've ever been to a Bill Gates presentation. I have. Al Gore presentation. I have. Jack Welch presentation. Well, that was a long time ago. I have Sir Sebastian Coe talking about the bid for London 2012 Olympics presentation. I have. Okay, so very memorable moment. I love the order here, but lifetime learning. You do learn a lot of things. My MBA was a long time ago. I really remember 5 or 6 dramatic moments that I actually use in my, I don't know if day-to-day, but weekly day-to-day basis of work, with some concepts that I haven't forgotten about marketing, entrepreneurship, finance, penetration into new markets, things like that. So things that you will really remember for life. An MBA is a case study. Top MBAs use the case study method. This is a memorable system which creates memorable moments. There's a lot of personal growth. Okay, you work in a great situation, usually team-based method, where you're going to have projects with challenges as a leader, as a team member. You're going to have a lot of international exposure. There's a lot of projects that you have to go somewhere and do them with the industry or even in a different country. And the MBA class is very diverse and international. So it's an amazing experience. And the networking, again, I don't know how to put a price, even not friendship, just professional network that you're going to have post-MBA. And even in 10 years, when you need to think how to market a new product into Thailand, the easiest way is just to pick up the phone to your friend that happens to be the head of the Thai alumni club and kind of discuss with him and ask him for some contacts. So, there's so many benefits which are beyond how much is it costing me and what is my first salary. That was me. My name is Shimri Winters. Thanks very much. I'm from ARINGO MBA Admission Consulting. Check us out on aringo.com. Always you can send us your profile and reach out for a free profile evaluation. See you in the next videos. Thank you very much and have a great day. Goodbye.